Imagine travelling over 300 miles to get to a campsite, only to be told you cannot stay. Some people don't need to imagine because they have actually suffered from this problem. Absolutely awful for them, but it could have been avoided, and I will explain. I'm going to talk about several issues today, several reasons why you might not be able to stay at a particular site, and also some other related prohibitions you might need to be aware of. I'll tell you about a fire which I also witnessed several years ago. It was actually pretty horrendous. And there's also some definitions here which I'm pretty sure that you're going to disagree with. Let me start by saying that any of this, I am not having a go at any campsites. Each site owner will have their own reasons, their own set of rules and regulations, terms and conditions, and they'll have the reasons why they've set those. Whether these are determined by themselves, health and safety, insurance, or something else, it's ultimately up to the owner, and they're absolutely free to apply these rules as they wish, no matter how hard done by which we feel that they don't want us or allow us to do certain things. It's up to them, and if our van awning or accessory isn't allowed, then we've just got to look elsewhere. There is one place in particular where I really want to stay, a beautiful site with some absolutely incredible views and some great places of interest which I want to visit. But I can't because of the rules. Let's have a look at some of these and the reasons why they're in place. One you will no doubt be aware of, probably heard about before, and that's no commercial vehicles or vans permitted. This could pose a few issues, especially with one of the definitions which I will come on to. There are a few possible reasons for not wanting commercial vans on certain sites, and let's remember the site owners can enforce their own rules. They may wish to avoid having certain people turning up in a van, like with a mattress in the back, a disposable barbecue for cooking, music blaring out. Or, in the case of a sign-written van, these could be deemed an eyesore. People don't want to be looking at those whilst they're on the holidays. And if they're working, then they're going to be possibly disturbing guests if they're leaving early. Commercial vehicles can also be noisy. Again, remember, these are not my rules. All those things are taken from websites, and I'm not saying I agree with any of them. Vans not permitted is certainly one that can be dependent on interpretation. What is a van? A campervan is a van, but surely they don't mean campervans are not permitted. Well, you might be surprised, as even campervans are not allowed on some sites. One website actually stated that they only wanted registered campervans, a topic which often causes much controversy. I will come on to this more in a moment. Some websites state, if you have a campervan conversion, please contact us, as they would like to know more about the van which you have. So I had to move. I was being absolutely chewed by midges stood over there near the grass. So how is a banned vehicle, a commercial vehicle, defined? Well, the best answer is to check with the site, because they do vary, really drastically vary, but this is how one campsite defines it. If your vehicle is not a car and not registered an M1 on the logbook, then you're not coming in. If it's not M1 registered, how many campervans these days are M1 registered? This is going to clearly rule out a lot of campervans, because not everyone has a type approved campervan with M1 registration. Most people will have a panel van conversion, and this leads to another reason why some sites don't allow campervans. How can a camper site determine a good conversion from a poor conversion, a home-built DIY camper from a true professional camper? It's very hard for them to determine this, and this is where the type approval aspect comes into play. Those campers are the only ones that can pretty much guarantee that they've been built safely and within the regulation. But more on campervan requirements later on. But why would a campsite owner even care about this? Well, campsite owners have a duty of care to the customers, the guests who are staying with them on their property, on their site, hopefully coming away to have a nice holiday. So what happens if a campervan sets on fire due to it not being built properly, and it spreads to a neighbouring van's property, a tent and awning, causing damage, possibly injury, smoke inhalation? Is the campsite liable? Did they take reasonable steps to prevent the incident from actually happening in the first place? That duty of care to the people who are staying on their premises. Have their risk assessments identified that some campervans are dangerous, and therefore they need to ensure that they limit that risk? This can also be seen, as I've mentioned before, that some insurers only accept vans with professional installations of facilities that they are built within the regulations. Risk assessments also stretch beyond the van itself, like the rules of what you can and you can't do. The risk is mitigated in different ways from campsite to campsite. The rules are going to differ. How often do you read in the booking information that fire pits are not allowed? And that's because the site deemed them a risk. And sometimes that you'll find that fire pits are allowed, but then you'll find that the fuel types of the fire pit is going to be restricted, and wood is often prohibited. Must use charcoal only. There could be time restrictions also to say that it must be extinguished by a certain time. Barbecues could be allowed, but come with an instruction such as must be raised off the ground, placed on bricks, mustn't use disposable barbecues. And I did witness a fire start from a disposable barbecue on a campsite quite a few years ago. It was kind of amusing, but it really wasn't. You know, the fire part wasn't amusing, but it was down in Cornwall about 2008, and I remember this brand new 2008 plate Mercedes E-Class estate pulled up as it where I was, just pitched up, and we were all ready. They opened the rear and pulled out a brand new gear, tent, chairs, table, literally everything was still in the wrappers, like proper brand new. And what happened next was pretty much comedy gold. I don't agree that the modern air awning's being divorced in a bag, but this one nearly was for this poor bloke. So as I said, it was about 2008, and this was kind of a pole tent to be erected by two people who I don't think had ever camped out ever in their lives. By the look of them, they were more acquainted to five-star hotels. And they were trying to put up this tent, and it really was not going well. They couldn't even figure out one end to the other. So I put down my cup of tea and I went over to offer my help. Fortunately, it was rudely rejected, which only made the next few hours even funnier. They really did struggle, and his wife kept looking over with what I can only imagine to be a look of, really sorry, please come over and help, we are really struggling. And it really genuinely did take them several hours to do it. And after that, if it had been windy or rainy, I really don't think it had actually put up with it. But it was now the disposable barbecue which they had. They came out and they cooked the food. And I'm sure they had a lovely tea. But straight after the tea, they got the barbecue and disposed it in the bin within the compound. I didn't see him put it in there. I was busy cooking my own tea, but it was the shouting and the sense of panic which I got afterwards that followed, that you knew that something bad had gone wrong and the bins were actually on fire. And this is why you see specific rules, prohibited products. These campsite owners don't want their property damaged, or of others for that matter. Some sites go further than this though. Clothing lines can be banned at some. Not the end of the world, but the next few could be a real pain, especially if you've got children. A ban for bikes, scooters, skateboards. That's a pretty big one for me, because bikes especially, they're seen commonly around sites. Children having a ride round, exploring, doing jumps over the sleeping policeman. That's speed bumps or speed ramps if you're not aware of that phrase. Why ban bikes? Well, perhaps they've had a previous incident, either people claiming that the property has been damaged by an individual riding one, or maybe they ran into somebody and got injured. This being a possible reason why a risk assessment would deem that the riding of such things being a danger to the user or potentially other campsite owners. That also goes back to sleeping policemen. These are often seen around campsites as a traffic calming measure for people to keep the speed down, along with lots and lots of signage. You'll often see 5 miles an hour. The point is to reduce the risk, prevent the accidents from happening. And we can't argue with these. The places are trying to make our stays much safer. We might not agree with it, we might not like it, but we have a choice. If you need to take a fire pit, bikes and scooters, then make sure you book a site without the restrictions for them. Another restriction could be in regards to your awning, your pop top, your tent, your gazebo, toilet tent, etc. There can be restrictions on these, with the restrictions taking different views. Some may be a complete total ban, and some may be permanently attached to your van only, which means you can't drive away. And some might even have a size restriction. And some of the restrictions might not be very big. A 2.5 metre restriction could be a problem, as a lot of awnings are more than this. One place says if you don't abide by these rules, we will take it down. But this could be to ensure suitable distances from between the units, to try and prevent any fire from spreading. And that's why they also ask you to park a certain way, and every other guest follows the same system. And I know some of you are going to be thinking that a lot of this is obvious, But not everybody reads the terms and conditions properly when they're booking. And secondly, you may be thinking that the people on these sites don't actually check. Well, a lot of them do. They have wardens who inspect, and you could find yourself being removed if you don't comply. It really does happen, especially in the peak periods, which we're just kind of going to get into. But it's not only the wardens though, it's other campers. Not everyone supports others, and you may find that somebody may grass you up. And that's one of the reasons why I had the warden round. My son was playing ball games on the grass. He was young and it was a sponge ball, but somebody felt the need to complain. So they complained. It was a sponge ball on the grass, but it was breaking the rules on paper, and they grassed me up. You just need to be aware of these before you book these places to make sure that the restrictions that are in place are not going to be affecting you. There's a particular place where I want to visit, near some epic places which I want to see, but there is restrictions, but they're not that straightforward because there's restrictions vary between the different fields of the site. One site has the best views, but won't allow awnings and has a specific campervan definition. And another allows tents, but not roof tents. And another allows campervans. But this is where another definition comes into play. And I actually understand that this change has come in recently and has caused quite a few people to get caught out, which really does underline that message today of check the terms and conditions, read the booking properly, make inquiries to ensure that your vehicle is going to meet the criteria for what you've actually booked, as you don't want to be turned away when you've travelled a long way to get there. So why have people been turned away? Well, because the campervan doesn't meet the criteria. The site requirements are that a camper needs to have a fixed bed and also storage cupboards. So your California beach camper or the pull-out kitchen camper like the slide pod or maybe another system will not be acceptable on this site, and you're not going to be allowed to stay. But that isn't an isolated example. There are other campervan definitions. The cupboards, the storage, etc. seems to be a relatively new requirement, but it is seen at some other sites. Some define minimum size of beds, stating there needs to be tables and chairs in there, water storage and fitted cooking appliances. So you can't just rock up with your portable kayak or similar. Furthermore, the fitted equipment can be stated as having to be professionally fitted. Sometimes professionally installed gas with appropriate certification. The size of the camper could also be mentioned, like no bigger than 6 meters. The moral of this story, as I say, is check the terms. Make sure you know exactly what you're booking when you're booking into these sites. And anyway, if you want to see some fantastic vans which will be acceptable in some of these sites, have a look here, or have a look at the slide out, a different camper van here. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.